Dear students, good morning. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, 27th February 2018. The first article, Life in a Deadly Democracy. We have to see three aspects over here. One is how or what is the responsibility of a citizen in a democracy? What is democratic decision making? And third, how the communist parties are fitting in democracy. And finally, we will see the status of communist parties in Kerala. Now, the first thing is the citizen's role, if you observe. So, demos means people, kratia means rule. Democracy is nothing but the rule by the people. So, in that scenario, a citizen is expected to play a proactive role. He has to be vigilant and his functionality has to make the government accountable, and also he has to discipline the political parties. What is democratic decision making? It means all the people who are getting affected by a particular decision of the government need to be participants to that decision making. It means if there is a project where the people are getting displaced, all the stakeholders need to be consulted, and based on their opinions, based on the contestation of different thoughts, final outcome has to come. It means that the democracy functions on consultation, contestation of the thoughts, respect for the differences. This entire decision making in democracy is based on public reason. It means there is no scope for arbitrariness over here. So, in this context, the democracy is away from violence. It is more about making the people convenient with its decisions. Many a times, decisions may be delayed in democracy as they are based on reason, legitimacy. They have greater acceptance from the citizens. That's what we can say. Now, communist parties, if you take, communism, it believes that violence is a necessary evil for changing the structure of the society. So, there is a natural acceptance of violence. Second, in India, communist parties have agreed to function within the framework of democracy. So, here, if you take Kerala's situation, the political parties, especially Communist Party, it has a class division within. So, the leadership is made up of upper caste, rich and wealthy people. The foot soldiers, these are the victims of the feudal mentality of the leadership. That's how the author projects it as. It means even in the Communist Party, there is a class and caste divide. And the next is Indian political system is welfare oriented. It is populistic. So now it is trying to woo the citizens. What a citizen has to do? He has to define the common good. So instead of defining the common good, he is taking an access to the welfareistic services, public services, and in return is not questioning the attitude of the parties or the government. So that's why this article states is the citizen is failing in his role. His role involves to be vigilant about the political government, to discipline the political parties, to define what is common good. These three functions he is failing to perform. That is my takeaway point to home. The next is power of persuasion. So what is scientific temper? And Jawaharlal Nehru, when he used that, it means rationality, humanism, critical inquiry, and above all, the respect for the other human being based on dignity for every individual. So, development of scientific temper, a critical inquiry, humanism, this is part of fundamental duties in India under Article 51A of the Constitution. But why we do not have this scientific temper in India? Let's take most of our habitual patterns are conditioned through our nurture. So the superstitions are nurtured into our mind, and questioning of this superstition is threatening, or we are unable to come out of our confirmation bias. Simple thing. For example, you are traveling to some other place. So all of a sudden, a cat comes before you. Probably you think that your trip is not going to be good. If anything wrong happens in the trip, we attribute that to that particular cat. Because from the days we are being conditioned that if you have seen a cat, then obviously your work will not be properly finished. This conditioning is one which is not allowing us to take this scientific temper. And second is Science also has limitations. It cannot explain every phenomenon objectively. And the science is evolving over a period of time. If you take the Darwin's theory, it is able to explain the evolution, but origin of life, it did not explain it. And if you talk about theory of an atom, it evolved over a period of time. So in this context, there is also a reason or point for debate by the believers in this superstition. So that's why the author suggests, let's go through persuasion. So let's try to accept their viewpoint and cross question them rather than countering them. So this is the persuasion is the best way to bring in the scientific temper in the minds of the people. That is the essence of this article. Z Unlimited, it is the development of new developments in China. So People's Republic of China, if you remember, after Mao, Deng Xiaoping, the popular leader in China is Xi Jinping. You remember, Mao, he has brought in the cultural revolution. Deng, economic revolution. If you see the Xi Jinping, he brought the China into the geopolitical landscape of the world. He made the China assertive and he started developing the Chinese connections through his One Belt, One Road initiative. So, after the Deng era, the most powerful leader in China is Xi Jinping. How can we state that? His control over the civil administration, army and party is absolute. And the second thing is, his thoughts on socialism with Chinese characteristics are the part of the party's charter. After Mao, he was the only leader who is declared as a core leader. This shows his control over the party and the politics in China. Now, during Jiang Zemin era, it has been declared that no president will be taking more than 2 terms. These term limits are being removed now. So when term limits are removed, it means Xi Jinping can be a president for the lifetime. And his successor is also not announced. What Communist Party states is, many reforms were initiated by him. If they have to take root, time is necessary. That is the explanation. But the centralization of leadership, along with the providing for stability, it also brings in certain noise. What is that noise? There will be resentment among many people. And second, Chinese philosophy is based on collective leadership, community leadership. So when one individual gains the power, and obviously it can threaten the unity of the country. So this is what we have seen in the Chinese history. So in that context, over centralization of power is not going to send good signals to the world. And Xi Jinping and his assertiveness and Chinese assertiveness under his leadership is not a very good sign for the world, especially India. And Miss India, it is about Sri Devi. So Miss Sri Devi passed away in Dubai, and she is an artist whose reputation is equally spread across all the cine industries in India. So in this context, the Sri Devi's loss is a great loss for the film industry. I covered that, but it's not of very significance to us. Stemming the tide of agrarian distress. So this budget is said to be the farmer's budget. What are there in it? Minimum support price for all the crops. It will be on the cost of production plus 50%. This is the first announcement of Finance Minister. And second is the Gramin Haats. The existing agricultural markets, they will be upgraded as the Gramin Haats. New markets are being developed. And the third thing is, the government is also going to provide increased credit to the agriculture, up to 11 lakh crores. What are the problems? The MSP is expanded to all the products. But how this MSP is determined? As of now, Commission for Agricultural Costs and Prices determines the MSP. Its procedure is this. A2 means whatever the costs incurred by the farmers to produce that. The seed cost, fertilizer cost, hired labor cost, everything come under A2. A2 plus FL, it is the family labor. It means if in a field My wife, my father, everyone are working. Normally, we do not count as it labor, but this family labor is also included. And third is C2. In the C2, along with the family labor, the interest paid by the worker, everything is taken into consideration. So, as of now, what we are using is A2 plus FL in our price calculation, production cost calculation. So, the farmers want it to be shifted to C2. And the second is input costs are increasing. So, along with minimum support price, we also need to develop the mechanisms to reduce the input cost to the farmers. Now, marketing infrastructure is being developed, that is the second thing. But how about the perishable goods? And how to develop agro processing industry to develop the value chain in agriculture? These are the questions which are untouched. So, the credit 11 lakh crores is a huge sum. But if you carefully observe, the small and marginal farmers and also these tenant workers, these are not getting benefited because of this credit flow. Only the landowners are getting a benefit. So these problems need to be addressed. Added to that, there is another program announced that is to give importance to the bore wells which are solar powered. So more bore wells are going to come up in rural India. It means more extraction of the groundwater. Already ground table is receding. That is one challenge we have to address. And second is income security to the farmer during crop failure. So a rise in MSP can only help the farmers when there is a surplus crop production. Then what is the solution to the farmer when crop has failed? We have to have something called agri insurance. This agricultural insurance which we are talking about will help the farmer in the case of crop failure. So Fasal Bima Yojana, it need to be extended and speedily implemented. Third is India has to spend enough on research and development. These are the things expressed in this article. Don't discount WASH. WASH stands for water, sanitation, hygiene. Obviously, this WASH is going to provide for, when there is no hygiene, when there are infections to the child, it provides for inflammation of gastrointestinal system. When there is a chronic inflammation, our nutritional status is going to get affected because whatever the food the child takes, it will not be absorbed into the body and will not provide for the growth of the body. So that's why what I can say is, if there is no proper hygiene, it leads to stunting. But recent study has stated that WASH do not have a significant impact on stunting. That is what the Bangladesh and Kenya study showed. Because Bangladesh, Kenya is different from India, they are able to arrest the open defecation over there. In India, still around 52% of the population, they use open defecation. In that case, the Bangladesh is a standing example for India. Within 15 years, it was able to reduce open defecation from 142% to 1%. What this trick? So simply, Bangladesh has relied on children. So children are educated and motivated and they are acting as whistleblowers to avoid the open defecation. So motivating the children, educating the children, so that has made a big difference for open defecation in Bangladesh, which India can definitely buy a point for its Swachh Bharat mission. So that is what this article talks about. Had Bose lived? So what is the difference between Nehru and Bose? So Nehru is socialist, Bose is also a socialist. But Nehru's base in Muslim League is very weak. I am not saying among Muslims. In the Muslim League party, there is more opposition to Gandhi and Nehruvian politics. And in 1937 elections and 1942 elections, there is a significant difference in which how Muslims have voted. So the Muslim League is able to establish itself as a legitimate representative of Indian Muslims. Finally, it has led to partition. On the other hand, the Bose enjoys lot of legitimacy in Indian Muslims. So if he would have existed, then the India would not have partitioned. That's what is the idea spread over here. And if we observe, Bose, he's an hyper-nationalist, along with that strong secularist. So, nationalism and secularism and socialism, these three things are there in Bose. So, that could have provided for an alternative to the Janasingh, which is a right wing party today, which is making of hyper nationalism, majoritarianism, and it is talking about a rightist economic policies. So Nehru was there, Bose is there. Hyper nationalism, it is the driving force or factor for the people to go to into the fold of the BJP. So existence of Bose would have brought hyper nationalism into the fold of secularism and socialism. That is this article's message. Bank of Baroda's role in South Africa's Gupta scandal. So, the Bank of Baroda has provided for banking channels to launder the money of Guptas, that is the allegation made in this article, and not more than that. And polls are completed in Meghalaya and Nagaland. We will wait for the results. Here there are certain important points. So the royal salute to India's religious plurality. In the West Asia, which is also called Middle East, only country that is peaceful is Jordan. So the Jordan is custodian of the holy sites in Jerusalem, and second, most of the refugees of Palestine, these are staying in Jordan, more than 2 million. And the third thing is the radical elements like Islamic State, they have failed to enter into the Jordan. So, for de-radicalization process is very active. It is called Aqaba meetings. So, try to remember this for security issues. So, the first meeting on de-radicalization was initiated in a city called Aqaba, and there are consultation at the personal level across the global leaders to bring in a common action on de-radicalization, that is called Aqaba process. And King also has clearly stated that India did not face the radicalization from Islamic State, etc., for the reason that Indian Muslim practice, the moderate Islam, Hanafi Islam. That's what he states. Centered to be all ears at the local level. So, for every district, a social media coordinator is being appointed in Delhi and is to monitor the discussions happening around the government. So, it means information and broadcasting machinery is more becoming a propaganda machinery for the government programs. And the next is Corbyn bags customs union access. You know, the Brexit is filled with many problems. So now, Jeremy Corbyn, Labour Party leader, he has backed off from his earlier point and is stating that UK has to continue in the customs union. What is the customs union? So it is a common tariff and common economic policies for the movement of the goods in a particular boundary. So the European Union is a customs union. It means that there will be no customs duties for the countries within that union, and outside that union, entire European Union will have common customs tariffs. So this customs union is stated to be the reason for the prosperity of the European Union. UK do not want to get out of this now. ICAI favors existing audit mechanism with repeated banking frauds. The government is more focusing on auditing mechanism in India. So that's why it wants to bring in a super regulator. That regulator is called as National Financial Reporting Authority. So as of now, the auditors are regulated by an elected institution that is called self-regulation, Indian Institution of Chartered Accountants of India. Now, National Financial Regulatory Authority, if it comes into picture, it will lose its significance. That is one thing. And this NFRA is going to be based on Sarbanes-Oxley Act of United States of America. This is called Banking Act. It is to regulate the banking sector in the country or to regulate financial instruments in the country. So the chartered accountants argue that this act did not yield the intended results, so we can continue with the existing mechanism itself. That's what they talk about. In the final page, I gave you the notes which will be available to you at laix.in/CivilsPrep. Thank you very much and all the best.